Hey, hey, welcome to another
Hey,
episode. I am Dagny,
and I am Damali.
and in this episode, we want to discuss with you a important topic, as usual, that is
Mhm.
very close to both of us, and it's about PCOS, Polycystic Ovary Syndrome. And in this episode, we're going to share with you our own experience with it. Of course, being as concise as possible, because this is not a full PBS documentary. And then
Yes.
also discuss different nuances in terms of what's it like living with it and what's it like having a medical industry that still may not fully understand it, what things have helped us and what kind of challenges we've had, and what kind of resources has been useful to us as well. So this is an episode one. Of course, if you are someone who has this or knows somebody who has it, we think actually this would be a very helpful conversation for you too.
Mhm.
So to start, first, let's get this out of the way. What is PCOS? So according
Yes.
to, all right, medical studies and, Google. PCOS is polycystic ovary syndrome. It's known to be a hormonal disorder causing enlarged ovaries of small cysts on the outer edges. The cause of this is not understood at all, but it may involve a combination of genetic and environmental factors. And treatments, there are a number of treatments that can help, which we'll discuss. But the condition apparently is, at least in medical fields, it's claimed to not be something that can be cured and is something that can last for a long time or actually is a lifelong condition.
Mhm.
So,
Yeah.
to start, in terms of our experiences, wait, should I go first or do you want to go first, Damali?
Yes, definitely. Because you've been going. This has been a while. You go first, and then I will
Okay, fine.
piggyback off of that.
Okay. So, I'm going to try and be as concise as possible with this because this is something I've been dealing with. In terms of proactively focused on it, it's been 13 years now.
Mhm.
And in terms of actually living with it, I think that would go beyond 20 years, I think. So, in terms of, I'm going to categorize it in like three phases. All right. So there's the first
Yeah.
phase of leading up to finding out that this condition exists. Then the second phase of now knowing it exists and trying to figure out what I'm supposed to do with it and the experiences I've had with medical professionals about it. And then the third phase will be the phase I'm in now when it comes to living with it and creating a routine that works for me. And I know, yes, medically, technically, they claim it can't be cured, but I do feel that our thoughts and our beliefs are very helpful in reflecting a reality. So I would say that actually I have healed my symptoms in terms of maintaining, but always needing to maintain the routine that I've created. So the first phase was dealing with throughout my teens. My cycle initially started normal. And then within about 2 or so years of when it started, it shifted into basically going out of whack. So it would skip months on end. And then also when it would come, it would be debilitating and very painful. So throughout my teen years, I would be dealing with one, having to miss school for a day or having to be picked up early because of how much pain I'm in. And then also having to be in a routine of always carrying heavy Tylenol or Excedrin in my backpack all the time to deal with the pain I was in. So the symptoms I was having was one of, yes, the cramp pain, also really bad headaches, also feeling quite tired or burnt out. But I was a very active kid. So with getting good grades, as well as all the extracurricular activities from theater to dance, volunteering, that was teenager Dagny. So it was a deal of it. I wasn't necessarily a sickly child. I just was pushing through as if it's almost as if it's normal to just always be in pain. That's kind of where I was at. The first shift occurred when, okay, now it's time to go to college. And dutifully, my parents were like, so you can't be fainting in college because, we're not here
not
to pick
really
you up and nobody's going to be there to pick you up. So why don't we now shift out of the pediatrician mode to the gynecologist mode? Up until this point, as a teenager, we would go to the pediatrician taking note. She's having these symptoms. What's going on? Why is it happening? It's a phase. Some girls go through that. It's a phase. Then, okay, go to my eye doctor, because if you don't know, I was born with glasses on my face. So we've always had glasses on. So go to the eye doctor. She's having these really debilitating headaches and she's only a kid. Like, what's going on? Yeah, we don't know. It has nothing to do with her prescription. Her prescription's fine. She can see. So we don't know. Go figure it out. So there was no help or guidance at all in terms of what was going on with me. And this was not something that we knew within the family. So it was like, okay, well, drink tea and lay down because we don't understand why you're in so much pain, because that's not something we're used to. Like, why are you dying every 3 months? Like, what's going on? So there was that. Now switching into gynecologist mode, their vibe was, oh, just be on medication. All women go through it. And we don't understand why you're not already on medication. So deal with it. That then led to me ending up in the hospital and having a terrible experience because, again, that doctor was going in the mode of, we're not really going to ask the right questions. We're not really going to try and help and figure you out as an individual. We're putting you in a box. And that box, my body was not going to stay in that box. So that ended up in the hospital, hallucinating, beating up nurses while I'm very angry. And I'm not an irregular angry person, but it was a whole thing. It was a whole thing. I lost my sense of speech for about a month. Like, it was a whole thing. And so it was due to that, though, that was a pivot shift for me, because up until that point, I was someone who thought I needed to listen to adults, especially if they have the word doctor in front of their name. I would just take what they would say as gospel. Like, okay, yeah, you say I need to do this. Let's go. Like, I just figured you have my best interest at heart. That experience was what woke me up to be like, actually, the biggest advocate for your body, Dagny, needs to be you. Because I really cannot rely on other people to understand what's going on with me or truly show up for what I need. And so once I recovered from that, I went into the mode of like, I need to do my own research and figure out what's going on with me. And did get a second opinion from another doctor person. And even with that, took note. And that was a trip that also like Daddy actually came with me for. And it was after that we took note that like, actually, I need to be a master of this myself. Like, I need to be my own advocate for this. So that switched to then our second phase of, I'm now trying to figure out, what is PCOS? I've never heard of it before. And what do I need to do about it? And it was that might have been my first mode of actually going through a somewhat of a depression, because now that, okay, I have a diagnosis and there's not enough information out there, but it's putting like this huge question mark on my body, a huge question mark on everything I thought by default would be normal for me. That my body should just do what it normally should do. At that time, yes, I'm in my early 20s, which at that time you think, oh yeah, it's normal. Eventually you're going to have children and grow up and have like, I don't know, a dog and a horse in the backyard. Like, it's normal. And then now it's like, wait, all of this is a question mark. Like, and nobody can tell me how to fix it. They're just giving me, yeah, you should just be on medication forever and that's it. And I was like, I'm not doing that. At that time, there was no PCOS webinar, institute, symposium, books. There was none of that. Instead, all I was finding was so countless forums online with an endless amount of women from all over the world in distress, talking about the pain they're in, the confusion that they're in, and how there's nobody out here to help them. None of their doctors are helping them. There's nothing, and they feel so helpless. And so these forums were just like, okay, we're all going to be here together online, helpless. Then within that, because now that's like, I'm in a whole rabbit hole now. Within that, I was finding a few gems and a few gold of people saying, no, actually, they've done some studies. This is something to do with metabolism. It's something to do with hormones. Actually, maybe with food, you can do something. With exercise, you can do something. There is ways we can shift it outside of just surgery or medicine, which is what the medical field and doctors, that's the only thing they're putting you in. That is when I then went and started, okay, I'm going to experiment with food. And that is when I went vegetarian. And then fast forward about 5 years, went into being vegan. And then that also went into, okay, I'm going to do natural products on my skin, on my hair, different things, lifestyle, things like that, which then switched to the phase I'm in now, where now I have created a routine for myself that does work for me. The symptoms which, okay, if you don't know what these symptoms are, the symptoms that I was having in phase 2 still was this pain that felt like there's like a knife being stabbed into my womb and it's being turned over and over again inside. And I can't remove the knife because it's actually my organs that are causing this pain. So I can't remove my body from it. You just have to go through the pain. And this was regardless if I'm having a cycle or not, as well as then the fatigue, as well as mentally and emotionally going through serious depression. That I even went through periods of time where I was having suicidal thoughts, which was really scaring me because as a kid, I never had that. Like, yeah, you'd be sad, but not at that level where I'm actually concerned that I might harm myself or feeling like it's probably best if we just end the story where it is right now. So this phase 3 where I'm in now, I do have a routine. There is a certain type of food that I cook and eat for myself. I do yoga. My lifestyle is very, like every aspect of my lifestyle is actually dedicated to making sure my womb is happy. And even though it does require a whole lot of discipline and commitment, which we'll talk about more later, but I can say that I'm actually quite proud of myself that I was able to prove the doctors wrong. I was able to prove the medical professionals wrong. I was able to prove the statistics wrong. That no, I don't have to be on medication forever. No, I don't have to accept their limitations and restrictions. And I actually got to the source of what my issue was, which was a disconnect with the relationship with my body and relationship with my womb in particular, because throughout phase 1 and phase 2, my womb was a source of pain for me. So being here now where I feel more loving for my body, I'm actually more in sync and magical than I've ever been. And I'm living with it in a way that is not a burden or yes, I still have the scars. I'm still carrying scars, but I think I'm in a much more beautiful space now. But it definitely took a while because this is over a decade to get to this point. But that has been my journey with PCOS.
All right. Yeah. Yeah. And I can attest to all of this. I also, on the outside looking in, right. I remember the time where the very painful periods and like not knowing where to go. And you assume that obviously the doctors know everything. Right. Mm-hmm. But they didn't know as much. For me, I guess a part of the reason why also we wanted to do this PCOS podcast is also to show like different sides of it so that not everyone thinks that it's the same for everyone. Yeah. So for my story, PCOS came recently for me. When I was younger, for my teenage years, my periods are pretty like normal. If I skipped a period, it was like once in a blue moon and everything was pretty straightforward. No issue there. No problem. My cramps were not that. I mean, I've had back cramps, but not like I was still able to move and do things like that. But then I think it was around like 2020 that I started having some strange symptoms. I had skipped my period and it had been 2 months. And that was the first time that I think I had skipped my period for that long. And I would have period symptoms, but no period. So I'll be like randomly kind of feeling like pre-cramps, kind of feeling kind of bloated and different acne, different symptoms I normally get when I start and no period. So I'm like, okay, maybe it's time to go to a doctor, right? And so I went to a gynecologist and they looked at me and they were like, oh, okay, so you might, and they gave me I forgot what the name of it is, but they saw that I had like small cysts on my ovaries. I'm like, oh, okay, that's different. And and he basically said that the only way to deal with this is to go on medication. Like I'm sure most women know how this is. Any problem, birth control, right? And so since I'm on the older side of I'm not in my early 20s, so I kind of figured going on birth control in my mid to late 20s might not be the best idea. And also I know that there are a lot of issues of going on those medications and things like that. So I was like, okay, I don't know if I want to do that kind of thing. So he's like, okay, well, just and then after that I was like, okay. So after that, I was like, and at first I was like, there's no way I have PCOS. I can't have PCOS. That's not me. I was very much in denial because I was like, no, I don't want to go through this. Like my sisters go through it and everything. But clearly there was an issue there. And then I finally got my period. And then again, 2 months would go by, no period. And again, I would have symptoms and no period. So that was happening. And so I was like, well, I suppose it's time to ask my sister what's going on here, get some feedback on what the heck is going on. And I was like, well, if I just eat healthier, then it'll go away. Like, if I just do that. And I still have it today. And I think it was only like this year that I officially am like, okay, I have it. Like I was literally in denial. Like 2020, 2021, I was like, nah. 2022, And yeah, and so Dagny was able to, both my sisters were able to give me some information about medications I can take to try to, I guess, balance my hormones, because it seems it's like a hormonal issue.
Well, they're more like supplements.
Yeah, supplements. Yeah. Take supplements that can help. And thankfully, because we are, fast forward 10 years, there's a lot more information now on PCOS. So I'm kind of on the other end where there's a lot of information, a lot of research. I have people in my family that have it, so it's a little bit easier for me to deal with it. Well, I don't know. Well, easier that I have the information, but not easy and that I fixed it yet. I'm on the other side of it where I have not fixed it yet. It's been really hard for me to figure out how to deal with the PCOS, and I'm still kind of coming to terms with it, I think. I've tried different things like taking different supplements. I still haven't figured out like things like sleep. I don't have the best sleep schedule. I know that's a big deal. My exercise schedule is kind of all over the place, although I walk a little bit more now. Figuring out food that you have to eat, because food is very important when you have PCOS. And so I'm still kind of like trying my best to like drink more water and sleep more and do this and things like that. I suppose I'm more, I guess, used to my symptoms now. Like I'm kind of used to having symptoms and no period and then being like, okay, I guess I'll start later. It's more irregular now. And then I think, and sometimes I'll even have like 2 periods in 1 month. I'm sure there's some ladies that can attest to that. So yeah, it's still kind of like a learning curve. I'm learning more about it, trying to do my own research also, because obviously if something might work for someone else with PCOS, but maybe not for me, kind of thing. So still trying to figure that out. As you guys know from our last, one of our other podcasts, I recently I live in China, right? I'm working in China. So obviously, I'm in a different space and different stresses and different experiences I'm going through. And the PCOS is very much like your whole life affects it. Like anything you do is affected by you, kind of thing. So of course, I'm, and then I would assume that the pandemic probably made it worse, right? Because there was a lot of time of being indoors and being in quarantine and being like away from normal life, right? And then I would assume that, the COVID shots also probably affects PCOS, and I got COVID last year. That probably affects it too. So really, I've kind of, and I mean, I've gotten more information on different books and things like that have kind of helped me, but I'm still kind of like trying to figure out, why do I have this? Why is this happening to me? Kind of thing. And so some of my symptoms also have like random body aches, can't sleep. I'll be really tired in like during the day kind of thing, but I'll be wide awake at night. Things like that happen. I know that's a main symptom. Even if I try to go to bed at like 10 or 9, I'll just like sit in my bed and I can't sleep until 1 in the morning, things like that. And just feeling really like, or feeling really bloated, or just feel kind of like off kilter. Sometimes I get really bad like dizziness, like out of nowhere, and there's no explanation for it. and just feeling kind of, and so I'm kind of like, okay, painkillers kind of thing, or okay, supplement, okay, water kind of thing. The anxiety also, I figured anxiety kind of came from dealing with the whole pandemic, but I think my anxiety levels, I think, have increased, I think, and sometimes there's no reason for the anxiety. And then also, if you skip a period and you're anxious about starting your period, that can also stop you from having the period. So just figuring that out. So I'm at a space of still, trying my best with it, and just kind of, and sometimes I just go through like, oh, I'm in pain again. Oh, okay. And you just have to like accept it, take some painkillers and wait until it goes. Some days I can sleep and then I'll have the opposite where I'll have a whole day where I'm sleeping for the whole day, for a weekend. And then the next day I can't sleep at all. So yeah, so it's kind of been through, I guess, 3-4 years of really knowing that I have it. And it's kind of been, it's been interesting. It's definitely been an interesting ride. I don't know when I'll fully be able to figure out it, because I'm sure it will get, as I get older, probably it may get worse if I don't figure that out, right? Because I think that's kind of what seems to happen. And then my hormones are out of it. And then also recently I realized that maybe I had PCOS earlier than I thought, but didn't know. Because I've had other symptoms before where I've what's called having I just read this recently, but apparently your bladder can also be affected by PCOS, apparently, and UTIs and things like that. And I remember back in college, towards the end of college, I had 1 or 2 UTIs, I think. And they're like, oh, they're normal. Everybody gets them. It's no problem. And I was like, okay. And then they got better, and then I got them again, and they're kind of like, okay. And so I guess the way my bladder works has even changed because of PCOS, but I wasn't fully diagnosed until I think 2020. So but I do have to say the good thing is, thankfully, because I have people in my family like Dagny that went through it, it's been a little bit easier for me. In some ways, I mean, I can't going vegan or going vegetarian. It would be very difficult for me, I think. So that's one thing that's hard for me. I know things like not having dairy and not having gluten are some things that you should do. The dairy has been easier for me to cut up, but gluten, I'm like, I love bread. Oh my God. And it's very hard to find bread without gluten that tastes as good. Right.
Yeah.
So, so that's been happening. I even recently bought another supplement to help with sleep or hormones. So yeah, so that's my, I'm still in the process of dealing with it, kind of thing. So that would be interesting to show the difference between us in that, where I'm still in it. I haven't figured it out yet, so it's is it anyone who's struggling with it or has PCOS or just discovered or knows someone that goes through it, don't think that, oh, I don't have it figured out yet, what do I do? It's yeah, I don't know, I still have not fully figured out what my body is doing. And I'm always in the back of my head, I'm like, it'll go away, right? Just in a few years, it'll be fine. But I found it funny. I mean, not funny. It's funny, not funny, haha, funny, sad, I guess. Cause I remember I was like, okay, well, people said that it's hard to get pregnant cause I'm in that, when you're younger, you hear about that too. Pregnancy is the thing we talk about. And I was like, well, I've never been I'm not on birth control or anything, so I won't have issues with kids and everything. And then to find out, oh, PCOS can make it hard to have kids, kind of thing. And I was like, oh, so this whole time I thought that it would, but no, there's a chance that it can still be difficult. But of course, as we know, there are many women who have 10 kids with PCOS, and there's no problem, right? So yeah, that's kind of been my, in terms of our, a background on our journeys. So that's kind of where I'm at with still figuring out what is the best for me. But I suppose I guess I'm a little not very proud of myself, because I know it's really hard for me. I'm also a comfort eater. My emotions are connected to what I eat. So if I feel down or I feel something, I'm going to eat. And sometimes you can't do that with PCOS, right? But I will say that I'm a little proud of myself, because there are some things I can do. I try not to drink sodas. I've definitely cut back on dairy more. And also I think I've become like lactose intolerant as I've gotten older, and that makes it kind of easier to not have milk, right? And then I try to only drink water, so that's good. But yeah, so it's still, as you can tell, I have no, it's not the end yet. I'm kind of like right in the middle of it, still figuring it out. So yeah.
And that's the thing that can be overwhelming, I think.
It's definitely
for
overwhelming,
all of us, because there is no one size fits all solution to it.
Yes.
All of us have to create our own formula to live with it. So that's true that even though the resources, I find like, okay, like the book that I think you're currently reading now, which I had read previously, of Woman Code by Alisa Vitti, right? Yeah. Okay.
Vitti, I think. Alisa Vitti.
There we go. Alisa Vitti. Yes. Yeah. So that is, boom, take note. That is a resource that I was introduced to during my phase 2 of trying to figure out how to deal with stuff. And I think the biggest thing that as you're creating your formula, it really does help to, for me anyway, it's helped me a lot in terms of you really know your body while you're trying to create this. So that book lets you know how your cycle actually is supposed to be. And so a lot of things about PCOS is interesting that we end up being advocates even without trying, because it gets you understanding that, wait a minute, we've been conditioned to believe that these PMS symptoms, the nausea, the headaches, the cramps, all of that is just normal. The pad commercials, like you shared one where it's like, you should be doing somersaults during your period as long as you're using Always or using this random pad brand. Jumping off cliffs,
jumping and
like cycling while you're on your period.
I just want to be in my bed.
Jokes. Exactly. Then there's memes and jokes of like, oh, that time of the month, women turn into monsters, blah, blah, blah. And it's like, actually, all of that conditioning is just further perpetuating us to neglect our bodies. So like in this book with Woman Code, it actually gets you to understand that we actually are not supposed to be in pain at any point of our cycle. And actually our cycle is, we are the moon, as in the whole month, we're supposed to be going through something with our bodies. It's not just you bleed and then that's it. And I don't know if school systems are doing better now, but in my day, health class in school was not teaching me any of this. And I don't know within families. I mean, now we are advocates. So now women later on in our generations, if they get to speak to us, we can let them know what should be happening with their bodies. But I don't know generationally if older women understood this is what should be happening or not happening with your bodies, because that's another conditioning that occurs in different cultures where, oh, you shouldn't talk about your period. No one should know you're on your period. It's taboo. No one should know about it because it's dirty. So you should just keep it quiet. So even though I'm fainting, I should just say I have a stomach ache. Instead of letting people know that actually it's cramps, like all of those things further allow us to neglect ourselves. And so for me, it's been a physical and spiritual experience to create my formula, because in my phase 2, not only was it, okay, figure out the food stuff, figure out the exercise stuff, but because I believe in a holistic, approach in these sorts of things, because we're trying to not be on medication forever. I also got into the research and understanding that of a spiritual, emotional deal of our wombs. If you believe in this notion that a lot of what we suppress, whether it's sadness, frustration, anger, whether we've been hurt, cheated, neglected, dismissed, all of those emotions sit in our womb. Happiness and joy also sits there, but all of those other things sit there too. And if we continue to just suppress it and neglect it, the symptoms, the physical symptoms that come are like the last resort. So as in, other symptoms probably came up before when it came to emotionally, feelings, signs, things like that. But because we're conditioned to believe, oh, just dismiss it, keep it moving, suppress it, keep it moving, pop some painkillers, keep it moving. So when the physical ailments come in, that's like your body, okay, now I'm going to have to bring out the dragon because you're not listening to me.
You're not paying attention.
You're not paying attention to me, So I like to see it as, because I know it's so much to deal with, that it's very easy to, at some phases, feel like a victim or feel so helpless or feel like there's nothing I can do. So let me just like lay down and not wake up, because what's the point? Like nothing's like it's taking too long. I don't even know where to start. That sort of thing can definitely come in. I have felt that through my phases too. Mm-hmm. But getting to the other side of it, where I'm not claiming to be a total master guru kind of thing, but being able to be on this side where I feel like I am my womb's best friend now, where there's now I understand the signals before, so that it never gets to the point of being pain. I understand the signals of, oh, actually, I feel like we don't want to talk as much anymore. Wait a minute. Oh, wait, it has been 3 weeks. Okay. Like, moving in, like really syncing my life in a way that flows with what my body needs. So in terms of what has helped, I guess we can discuss some things that have helped, or some types of things that one needs to focus on if you're trying to help with this. And the funny thing is that the different things that help with this are like lifestyle management tips that technically everybody should be doing anyway, because it's actually just makes you healthier, right? But in general, these are good things you should be doing. But if you are dealing with these sorts of things, which for us is PCOS, but I'm sure these things also can help for fibroids and endometriosis and mental health and things like that. So I guess to segue into that, we can go into some of those things. Yeah. So for me, let's start with food. I would take note that even though, yes, I am vegan, I would not necessarily insist that everybody needs to go vegan. If you want to hear more about going vegan, I got you. Like we can do a whole other hour.
Okay, yeah, let's go right now.
That, But the biggest thing I would say about food, regardless if you want to do that or not, is that food really is a natural medicine. So in order to start, if you want to start in terms of understanding how can food actually be of assistance to your body, you should start by truly noting how your body feels after you eat what you normally eat. So sometimes the way I started out, I'm an emotional eater the opposite way, as in I will not eat if I'm feeling down. I will undereat. Like I do not have an appetite. So something like the medical field will take note of like, oh, PCOS, obesity, they go hand in hand. And actually they don't, because we are in different spectrums of, I'm on the opposite side where during my phase 2, I was losing weight without trying. Yeah. And it was actually quite bad because it looked like I was having an issue kind of thing, or that I was ill sort of deal. Yeah. So when it comes to food, take note of how your body feels with what you eat. So maybe for the first week, eat how you normally do. But after every meal, take a note in your phone or on paper and note, do you feel sluggish? Do you feel tired? Do you feel heavy? Do you feel drained? Or do you feel light? Do you feel refueled? Do you feel rejuvenated? Then after that, take note of which ingredient is causing those different things. Because the biggest thing with PCOS is that inflammation is happening in our body all the time. Now, usually inflammation is something that happens when you're ill and your body is getting inflamed to deal with the virus and then get you back to being healed. This is why our stamina or fatigue, something that is complained a lot about people with PCOS, is they just always feel tired and they don't understand why, or it just takes longer to do stuff. They don't understand why. That's part of it, is that our body is actually overcompensating for something that's happening. This also is why PCOS and insulin is very important, because I don't have a science background, so I might be doing this in layman terms. But the
insulin, talking about insulin.
Yeah, the insulin resistance is something that is talked about a lot, and food has a lot to do with that. So when we have PCOS, our body automatically is not appropriately dealing with our sugar intake. And when that happens, a lot and technically where the sugar is supposed to go is not going there. So the sugar is just staying in the bloodstream, which then I think is our pancreas that deals with this, then responds to that thinking, well, it needs to respond because there's too much sugar. But if it's doing that over and over again, that's a problem, because you're distressing the body, and that's where the inflammation comes in. So this is why it's such an invisible condition, because a lot of people are going without being diagnosed with PCOS, and then later being diagnosed with diabetes or cancers or things like that, because it could have been prevented but didn't know that this is what was happening. So that's why the things I'm going to list, it does sound like, yo, this is a lot of work, but it is because you're trying to prevent what could happen. Because now we know that actually our body needs a little more, just a little more assistance to do what it needs to do to prevent itself from destroying itself, basically. Because that's basically what's happening if we're always inflamed. Basically, if it's always feeling like it's under attack kind of thing. So when it comes to the food, when you're noting down which ingredients are causing you to feel drained and stuff, that's where then you can figure out what you need to substitute. So for me, due to this condition, sugar is something that is, my body really cannot understand what to do with it. And growing up in the US, a lot of our food is laced in sugar and salt. Naturally, even the stuff that claims to be healthy, even the stuff that claims to be great for your kids, it's actually a whole lot of extra sugar that our bodies are not supposed to be digesting. So removing a lot of, for the beginning for me was removing a lot of refined food, boxed food, pre-packaged food, because all of that is laced in sugar and salt in order for it to be packaged on the shelf to stay there for the 2 months it's supposed to be there. Yes?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Then for me, I noted with the research I was doing, because it's a hormonal condition, it makes sense to not consume other hormones if my own body is already having difficulty with the hormones I got. So for me, it made sense that why are you eating animals? They have hormones too. They're also being fed a bunch of other stuff too that now I need to consume. If my body already needs more assistance, why am I setting it up to fail by giving it more junk to deal with when it's already having some difficulty dealing with the hormones it already got? So for me, it made sense to be like, nah, then cut it. Like cut out the meat altogether and then eventually cut out the fish altogether, cut out the dairy. Now this is where, cut it, just cut it. Now, this is where the challenges come in, which is why you need to be giving yourself grace for this, because it takes time to create a whole new menu for yourself. If you're used to, let's eat macaroni and cheese, let's eat the spaghetti, let's eat the chicken wings, let's eat, because I loved me my ribs, because we be living in Texas. God. I loved me my ribs. I loved my goat curry. I love that stuff. You know what I'm saying? I did. Okay. But like the long game, right? Like, are you going to enjoy that while still being in pain all the time? That was my thing of like, yeah, I could just continue like this, but the pain is taking away the abundance I deserve. The pain is taking away from the life I deserve because I'm not living the way I would like to. So yes, it's a sacrifice to cut out all of that and then now figure out what to eat because I still need my spicy stuff. I still need to feel full, and a salad is not going to do it. So when I say I'm vegan, I don't mean I'm eating like Bugs Bunny. Salad, that's not what I'm talking about. No. Like I don't even eat salads that much at all, to be honest. So for me, I do prefer my vegetables and stuff to be cooked. Figuring out how to use more vegetables and beans and legumes. That is actually what I normally eat every day. Majority of what I eat is what I cook. And I've figured out, it took time though, to figure out the types of what kind of stews and curries I can make, that the base is always lentils or chickpeas or bambara beans. And then what type of vegetables work for me. Then seasoning, right? There's layers to this. There's layers to this, which we can go layers. We can go deeper. I'll just go with seasoning and move on to the next one. But taking note, doing research on the types of seasoning that gives you the nutrients that you need. So the whole thing about food is that you're trying to set your body up for success. Give it the tools it needs to digest what you need. So it's not about, the mindset should never be I'm depriving myself or putting myself on a diet or restricting myself. No. The mindset should be I'm trying to reintroduce myself to food. I'm trying to create a different relationship with my food that's mindful, that's intentional, and loving to my body. So to make sure so that you get into the habit eventually that actually everything you consume is truly for the benefit of your body. So that you heal the cravings, you heal the yes, I still have an emotional deal where sometimes I may dip and eat less, but I'm a bit more disciplined and understanding, like I can't allow that to happen too long because then I start disappearing. So it's like, okay, we got to have.
Where's Dagny? Where'd she go? She's right there. Oh,
exactly. So like it does take commitment because We're not there yet for this to be convenient. Even if you live in a place where people are going to the market to get their food and stuff like that, it's still not convenient. You're still having to show up for your food. But if you make it eventually, like for me, it has become more of a habit. Of course, it's easier to do it when I'm always in my space. When I end up having to visit other people or I'm in other spaces, it can be a little dicey if I'm having now to deal with, I'm eating out all the time. Yeah. So figuring out, okay, what snacks can you have? Figuring out, okay, let me look at the menu beforehand. So yes, I live in Ghana and people say, oh my gosh, it must be so terrible to be vegan in Ghana. And the ingredients are here. Okay. So it's not like I'm having to import all the food that I cook for myself. The ingredients are here. I think the dicey part is eating out. So no, I may not be able to eat on the roadside with you because everything's laced in meat and vegetable oil and stuff that I don't eat. But at restaurants, most of y'all got plantains and rice that I can, and some kind of vegetable. Yeah. And I'm so grateful that most can be accommodating for me of like, well, do you have, and they're like, oh, no, we can get that for you. We can make the side of vegetables, that sort of thing, which I'm not into insisting because I don't know your kitchen. Like I'm not insisting like make something completely different for me, but I'm always very, very appreciative when those sorts of things are accommodated. And I think the attitude towards choosing to eat a certain way should be, I think it should be respected more, as opposed to it being seen as a burden or a joke or something to mock because you're choosing not to eat like this. So yes, sure, there's an aesthetic that comes with it, that you will look a certain way. Yes, I'm more fit, or I guess I look more youthful, or things like that, which is fine. That's fine. And some people, that's why they're vegan. That's good for you. Yeah. But for me, it's much more, it's part of a bigger picture. It's part of my whole lifestyle. And there's layers to it to get to this. It's not as simple as we just eat one thing and that's it. So that to start, if you want to look into how can your food actually work for you, be more mindful of how it's affecting your body, regardless if you have PCOS or not, and see how you can substitute go from ingredient to ingredient, how you can substitute things. Yeah.
Yeah. I agree that you have to find what works for you. I have found that through some researchers, because there's some people on Instagram also that I follow that talk about PCOS and different things. And they're very good at like giving different tips on things you can eat. And like, even if you can't be vegan or you can't be vegetarian, there are ways that you can change and not diet. I don't like that. People like to use diet all the time. Diet is something you do for like a week, 2 months, it's done. No. This needs to be like a whole lifestyle change that you really kind of think about what you eat. And that's been kind of helpful. For me, I'm still not there yet, but I do know that I pay more attention to what I'm eating. Like, even as I eat the McDonald's that I shouldn't be eating, I'm like, I know it's not like the best, but before I would eat McDonald's and not think about it, right? But now when I eat McDonald's, I'm like, okay, I ate McDonald's today. Okay, then I can't eat it tomorrow, or I can't eat it the next day, right? And even if I slip and eat it more than once in the week, I'm like, okay, well, at least I know tomorrow, okay, I should do this. Or, okay, if I'm going to have McDonald's, okay, but I can't get like a soda. I have to drink it with water, even though I know that does. We always joke where it's like,
not sure if that cancels out.
I had a water, so it balances, it cancels, done. I'm like, no, but still, it's something. I'm getting there. For me, I know for certain there's no way on God's green earth that I can become vegan or vegetarian. It's just not. I love meat. I can't. It's done. No, but I can lessen some of the meat. I can have other meat instead of others. I can kind of be selective in my meat. I can eat meat sometimes and then other times eat vegetarian stuff, because some of the stuff is good. And Dagny has gotten much better with her cooking over the years. And when I eat it, it's pretty good. I'm like, pretty good. Can't eat that all the time though, but it's great. It's great. I just, I always make that joke. It's funny. Actually, like, people shouldn't joke, and I'm all joking around. Whenever we're eating, like, we'll be eating vegetables, we'll be eating what she cooks, and I'll be like, this is great, but where's the meat? Even though I know she has no meat. My little joke. I get a pass. I'm her sister, so I get a pass. Okay.
Indeed, we're family, so we have to roast each other. It comes with the package.
We have to, right? But I will say that I do think about it more. Sometimes I hate that I think about it more because I just want to eat. Like, I just want to eat what I want. It's so annoying. But I do try to be healthier. I'll try having eggs maybe instead of meat because I think that can be a bit better. And in terms of like protein, I do read like the back of stuff. Like even when I do buy a box of food that you put in the microwave, I still read it to see what's in it. I try to get the healthier stuff. I've tried to get like the other kind of meat, but I think the fake meat is not always I've heard that actually is not that good for you.
Yeah, I don't do that.
But yeah, apparently it's not like they have the meat that it looks like meat, but it's not meat. I'm like, but I do try. Sometimes I go overboard. Like I'll just do like, I'll just get a bowl of like dry vegetables and just eat that. And that will be my dinner.
Yeah.
I don't think she roasts me. She's like, and then I wonder why I'm still feeling all bloated and gross.
Exactly.
I'm like, I ate a huge bowl of vegetables, so it's fine once. But anyway, I'm trying. It's still hard for me. I'm on that other side where like I'm just like, I know I'm going to be in pain later. I know I'm going to feel sick, but I feel good right now, so I'm going to eat it, right? But I think I've gotten better. I'm just the fact that I'm paying more attention to it, I think is good. And I try my best to, maybe instead of getting 2 burgers, I get 1 burger, instead of getting the big fries, the small fries, it's little things. And I've heard that too, at PCOS, because there's so much to it and it's very overwhelming. You can't do everything at the same time.
Yes.
And sometimes I do get overwhelmed and I kind of feel like, what, I don't care. I'll just drink water. I don't care. Like I'm done with it. I'll just be in pain, whatever. But of course, each time you do that, some of the pain is quite bad, right? And so it's definitely a learning curve to deal with it. But I have learned more about it and things like that. I would agree that it's a lifestyle change, and you need to be gentle with yourself and find what works for you. And also the same thing of being gentle, like if you are a family member of someone, let's say you don't have PCOS, even if you're a guy or a girl and you know someone that does, you should be gentle with them too.
Yes.
I think this is also a big thing because it's one thing to deal with your own PCOS, but if you're also dealing with people who are like making fun of you about it or don't understand it or are not willing to hear you out, that can also be difficult. And I've even seen like some men on Instagram that are talking about PCOS, like whether sometimes like the husbands of the person who has PCOS or just people that there was a guy who used to be a trainer of a girl who had it and he did all this research and he knows all about it. And it's just kind of like, whoa, this is like crazy kind of thing. And since I went into that, I guess we can start talking about like how advocating for PCOS and like talk about how do we advocate for it, and also how invisible it can make us feel. And I guess I suppose I'll speak on it and ask you, Dagny, how you feel about this. But I've heard some women that recently I was looking into, I don't know if we share I don't know what the name of, but there's a PCOS symposium that I like looked into. I've forgotten
which I sent to her. Thank you very much.
Which she sent to me. Thank you to give me more information. Because also apparently happy PCOS month. Apparently that's this month, September. Right? So happy PCOS month. Yay. Okay. But there's a symposium I looked into and I watched some of them. And the thing I noticed was how women talked about wanting to be quiet about it versus women who wanted to tell everyone and their mothers about it. And I thought that was interesting because for me, I don't think I've actually told people. It's not something I mean, maybe I'll talk about my symptoms, but I don't really like tell it to everyone. And but by even just saying some of my symptoms, I have heard other female colleagues or female friends of mine who have also talked about dealing with certain either PCOS symptoms or symptoms with just their periods kind of thing. And it made me think about how I don't know is it something I need to share? I should share. I'm not sure if I would help people if you talk about it more. And there are different women talking about how, she talks about it at her work. Like everyone at her job knows that she has PCOS. And a lot of them have been very understanding about it. A lot of them are like, hey, I have it too, or I know someone that has it. People even have like pins that they wear and they do like marathons and different things like that. And I guess that I'm still learning because I didn't know that was a thing. I didn't know we had like PCOS marathons and people are having ribbons and all of that. There's even a lady who has a PhD and her whole research is about PCOS, and she's had it for like 30 years or something, and all of this. And so I'm still learning about it. And so I think research is good because it makes you realize you're not like by yourself with it, because it can definitely be very isolating and you don't know what's going on. And of course, because I haven't figured it out yet, I feel bad. Like I'll be like eating all the food I'm not supposed to, but I feel horrible about myself, but I'm still eating it because I'm like, at least it comforts me. And, and then that can be overwhelming because it's like, if you have something that's like comfort food, like I feel sad and I eat it, it makes me feel better, but I can't eat that, then I'm just like, what am I supposed to do? Like, if I can't eat the things that make me feel happy, then what's the point, right? So it can be very overwhelming, but I think the main thing is just doing like small things in your life and making little changes that you can. I do hope it'll be cool to get like comments on this to see if other women, what you do to deal with it. Yeah, it's just been very like eye-opening. I definitely feel I know my body a lot more, which I think was one of the comments that one of the women said, that one good thing about PCOS is that I know my body really well. I know what to put in it. I know what not to put in it. I know the health of it and things like that. So that was really interesting to listen to. And let's see. And hopefully as time goes on, I get better. I know sometimes for me, like if I don't want to eat something, I won't buy it. Because if I don't buy it and it's not in my fridge, then I won't eat it. Sometimes that kind of helps also. And I guess I'll ask the question to you too, Dagny. What do you feel about letting everyone know you have PCOS, or only some people, or not telling anyone, or how invisible it can make you feel? How do you feel about that?
Right. I think, yes, it definitely does feel invisible in terms of feeling like, well, because it's not a scar that everybody can see immediately. Nobody really knows, understands what I'm carrying or what I'm having to do to maintain just existing.
Yes,
in terms
just
of
not being in pain.
Right. In terms of feeling comfortable of advocacy or saying anything, this right here is my first time publicly sharing this. And
mine too.
Yes, it is. It is vulnerable for me because I don't normally be speaking about my health outside of like glasses, because like, well, you can see it on my face, so obviously, but this is more vulnerable because it does directly deal with so many other aspects of my existence and my life, and was the cause of a lot of dips and pain for me. And it was actually quite love, but it shows for me that I've come a long way, because being even able to tell my story without crying is a big deal for me. Because years ago, if I had tried to start saying this, I would start crying because the pain is of what
I even cried for her, like, my goodness.
Yes. So I think I've told a few people, primarily because when the topic would come up about me being vegetarian or vegan, they had the capacity to have depth. So they would ask me the question, "Oh, you're vegetarian or vegan? Tell me, like, what caused you to go into that? Or was it for health reasons, or because you saw a documentary about food, or, and they really were actually genuinely interested. It wasn't because they're about to make a joke about how they could never not eat meat again, kind of thing. And so the conversation then would be like, no, actually it was for health reasons. And like, oh, please tell me more about that. And then I would let them know a little bit about my story. And it was then that they would note, like, Dagny, you need to tell people about this. Like, this is the fact that you're at this end of this. Like, people would love to know that there is a light at the end of the tunnel, that you can actually use food like this. And I'm like, well, I mean, there's already other people doing that. I don't know.
I know. Like, so many people.
There's so many people already doing that. So many other coaches and dietitians. I mean, I kind of felt at that time, I felt like, well, I don't know if my story would be of value. And I think also I felt like at the beginning stage in my phase 2, I felt there were 2 goals I needed to achieve before telling anybody, which was 1, being able to have a regular cycle or a healthy cycle, and 2, being able to have a normal, healthy baby. So at that time in phase 2, I was like, well, we haven't accomplished the 2 things yet. So I'm like, well, I need to accomplish that before telling my story, because what's the point, kind of thing. Now I feel like, well, we've had the healthy cycle now for some years. And the baby one is like, well, that's still a thing I'm learning about for myself. So I don't feel anymore like I need to wait kind of thing.
Mm-hmm.
I do understand.
That's what I told you too. I was like, talk about it. People want to hear what you have to say.
Yes. Yeah. So I do understand the hesitancy of telling people, especially if you're dealing with relationships, as in, do I, from the beginning, let you know that maybe there might be some difficulties that I go through or not? And I think that's not only for PCOS, I think that's for anybody who has any condition, whether it's a skin condition, a mental condition. How do you let somebody know without feeling like you're scaring people away? Because now it's like I'm asking the person to deal with something maybe they weren't equipped to deal with or ready to deal with. And I think at the beginning stages when you're dealing with it, I feel, for me, I didn't tell anybody. I think it's easier to tell people when you yourself are in a space where you can own it completely. So I wouldn't suggest if your personality is cool of like, I just found out, I don't know what I'm doing, but we're going to figure it out together publicly. That's fine. If your personality is set up like that, that's fine. But for me, I needed to fully understand what this is before I could ever tell anybody else that this is a part of me, because technically it's a part of me. But so I'm now in a space where, no, yes, I would be comfortable to let people know if they are close to me. Now I'm letting people know publicly. So now I guess
I know anyway. So, spoiler alert.
And exactly. But I think it's thanks to more of us being public about it, not necessarily to fix other people, but just to tell our story, has enabled for the past decade a blossoming of more community, more books, more webinars, more professionals who are deciding actually they're doctors and their specialty is this. Their clinics specializing in only this. And it's thanks to people being the pioneers and telling their story and showcasing these are the resources they've used. These are the formulas they've tried and that sort of thing. And then they themselves being like, they now have created their own formulas and e-guides and things like that, where they will take you by the hand and let's figure out what you need to be eating for you. Let's figure out what supplements you need. So the advocacy part has been beautiful to be able to create more resources. We have a long way to go though for the medical profession to catch up with us.
Definitely.
Because we obviously are way ahead of the game when it comes to treating ourselves, taking care of ourselves, healing ourselves. Where now, unfortunately, like I'm somebody who has a bias against doctors due to my experience, because it was doctors that got me in the hospital. It's doctors who got the scars I still have now. They did not heal me. They did not help me other than push me to help myself. So I'm hoping that this advocacy is not just, okay, we all as individuals are now follow me on Instagram for these tips, follow my book for this, follow my webinar for that. It should be that you can go into a hospital and somebody there fully understands what you need.
Yes.
It shouldn't be you have to go off into the internet, because some of it is not all okay. Some of it is still also playing on your vulnerabilities and your own feelings to get you, to grab you, to pay for some supplement that possibly is a placebo, or to pay for some webinar that's possibly not going to do anything for you. So I'm hoping the advocacy, which I know I get it in some countries, it has to be going into the mode of lobbyists to get y'all to get your act together. So you're not cutting us up when you don't need to, or you're not just pushing medication when you don't need to. So it's, and that's unfortunate, because then you have a whole lot of women who we will look at doctors as the last resort because of the type of experiences we've had. Which is
sad, because they should be the ones to help us.
Exactly. So I do hope that advocacy means that more, regardless of your gender, more of you really take women's health seriously, without us always having to do a deal of actually forget y'all, we'll do it ourselves. So, you know, and also I get it that a lot of us are going this holistic route, which is not good for business for your pharmaceuticals. And I get it that some of your medical profession is very much entwined and interweaved with needing us to be on medication forever. So I get it that everybody has a different ideology when it comes to how they want to heal, how they want to manage their health. I chose this route for me, and I'm on this stage where I really do love my body. I know my body. I am not in pain. I'm free of pain. I'm free of PMS symptoms. I'm free of the mood swings, the nausea, the cramps. I'm free of all of that without being on medication. Mm-hmm. And I would love to see all women get to be at this point in whatever way it helps and works for them. I would also love to see people who claim to be doctors, who have taken oath, who have taken the degrees, who are supposed to be here for our well-being. I would love to see y'all to take us seriously for once. When a woman says she's in pain, you take her seriously. You don't insist she's overreacting. When a woman says she's bleeding more than she should be, you take it seriously. You don't insist she's overreacting and push more pills onto her, or push on, well, let's just cut you up. Let's just drill your ovaries. Let's just remove everything. That's not how it should be. And I do hope that this advocacy also helps for women to take ownership of their bodies again, because a lot of this is conditioned to be like, we'll just do what you guys say we should do with our bodies. I hope that leads to more of us being free of pain in general.
Right. Yeah. Yeah, I definitely agree with that. Yeah, with the doctors and hospitals and stuff, it's very and especially when you go to, and the thing about PCOS is like you can't always see it. Yeah. Like I've had that situation where you go to the doctor, you take all of the tests you're supposed to take, and there's nothing wrong with you. Mm-hmm. It doesn't say anything. You're fine. So of course they're like, okay, you're fine, but I don't feel fine. Mm-hmm. And that is the main thing. It's like, I don't feel fine. And I think this is connected to everything, and you can't help me. And I definitely think there definitely needs to be more individualized care with PCOS patients. There needs to be actual like doctor, and not only like the doctors into PCOS, but doctors for different types of PCOS, because everyone has a different story and or have different symptoms.
Yes.
Different. Yeah. And it can't just be like, oh, OBGYN or gynecologist or like, no. It can't be like, you need to actually know, because if you didn't study it, you don't know. And funnily enough, it's not only, I mean, it sounds like we're like, oh, we're going for the patriarchy. Like, no, like even some female doctors, like there are female doctors, like if they don't know about PCOS and they don't have it, they also can't help you. Like sometimes, so it's just,
they did not help me.
It's women. Women and male doctors sometimes are not helpful. Sometimes even some of the women are not like having less helpful in my experience with the certain doctors you've gone to. So so the main thing is just to, not that like, oh, forget doctors, just don't listen to them at all. Like no medicine at all. No. It's just, you need to be an advocate, not only for other people, but for yourself. Like you need to know what works for you. You need to check things. Like even if a doctor tells you, oh, take this, you need to know, like if a doctor tells you to take a medication, for example, you need to know why, what it's for, what's in it, like it can't just be, I guess what the word I'm looking for, you need to be an active person with your body. You can't be passive about it, kind of thing. And I do think as we know more about PCOS and as like there's more of a community for it, I think women know more about that kind of thing, and they're able to help themselves more. I think also you can even like, well, some people can even educate like go to your doctor and be like, hey, this is PCOS. What's going on? What is this? And I also noticed that in the Women Code book that we brought up earlier by the Elisa Vitti, where she did that. Like thankfully for her, she was a very go-getter woman. Like she doesn't take no for an answer. And she was the one that did the research, and she went to her doctor and she's like, hey, boom, I have this. What is this? What are we going to do about it? Kind of thing. And she was the one that brought it up, and that's how she figured that out for herself. So I think everyone should just, be skeptical, be open. Doctors are humans too. And just because a doctor is good at their field doesn't mean that they can do, the thing for PCOS. I think that also lets us segue into some of we're no stranger to the sexism and racism that comes into the medical fields too. We all know that depending on how you look like, sometimes you are treated differently and you get different types of care, things like that. And obviously we know that sexism is a thing too, where women are always kind of like pushed to the side. We're kind of not listened to a lot. We're kind of always like made fun of or not really taken really seriously, even though we kind of take care of everybody. Like women be taking care of everyone, but we're not taken seriously when we have an issue, and we're just meant to just carry it and just deal with it, kind of thing. So we know that we need to definitely have to be advocates for ourselves. And I think for everyone too, even if you're a man, like you can also try to be more understanding of women too, and be an advocate and try to, and even if you don't understand, try to look it up. Don't just be like, oh, it's, nothing. Like you should also be interested, kind of thing. And like, even if let's say you don't know someone that has PCOS and you don't have it, you could still look it up, right? Because you could still get, so just in case you were to bump into someone that does, right? So I do think that I hope it's become better, especially with looking at this symposium. Clearly, there are communities for it. Yes. Where women do come together and talk about it. And I definitely see on Instagram and things like women are all talking about how like, yeah, I couldn't have kids and they said I couldn't have them. And then I did this stuff by myself and I was able to have kids, or I'm still trying, or my whole 20s, they told me I couldn't have kids. So like, I feel like I lost my 20s because all I was worrying about was whether I could have kids or not. So that was completely taken away from me. And so it's definitely nice to see all these women talking about it and like similar issues. And I do hope that is like, that shows that we know more about it. And like, we're not just like, oh, well, the doctor said, I'm just kidding, but the doctor said I should jump off a cliff. So I just jumped, like, I mean, obviously I'm being dramatic, but you like, they're human too, right? And they have their ways to do things, and it's true. I wouldn't say no medicine at all, because obviously some women do need medicine. It's not everyone can do the holistic thing, and not everyone it will help them, right? So everyone has to find their own way. But just to know what's inside the medication and know about it, because I know for me, when I hear the horror stories of birth control and all this stuff, the issues with it, I'm like, there's no way I'm kind of thing. But for some women, it helps them, and they get on it, and they get off. Then when they're ready to have kids, they do it, boom, they're fine, right? So it's definitely a learning curve, and I do hope that it gets better, kind of thing, and it has gotten better. And I guess from that, and then also like moving on to, I guess we can move on to like the feminine and masculine and gender identity that we kind of talked about before, where it's like, does PCOS influence that? Because I'm sure everyone knows, well, if you have PCOS, you know that there definitely is the biggest hormone situations, I think, are testosterone, right? And progesterone and estrogen and all of that. And like having symptoms that we're supposed to have when we're like in our 40s and 50s, but we have them younger and things like that. And so I guess that was interesting to learn about too, how like that is influenced. I don't know if that means we have a superpower. I'm just kidding, as a PCOS people, or that makes us more powerful because our hormones are stronger, because they're so strong that they're shifting the way that our bodies are supposed to work. I don't know if that like I'm still looking for PCOS as an asset or like a power. I'm still waiting to see if that, I don't know. All I know is that there's pain, and then I take a medicine and there's no pain. There's pain, there's no, but I suppose if we could understand that more and take more control of PCOS, we can, I mean, I suppose it could be a power in the sense that you take better care of your body, where you're listening to your body more. And also to piggyback off of what you said earlier about the womb. Yeah, when I was younger, I didn't really have a relationship with my womb. It just kind of, it was there. I knew that you had a womb, and that's what you do with kids and stuff. And then you like go on your period, and then you have cramps, and it's like, okay. But as I've gotten older and I've, spoken to Dagny, who knows more about these things, I realized that, so there's a connection. Wait, let me get this straight. So my emotions live in my womb. Oh my goodness. What is this? I'm like, are you kidding me right now? Yeah, I didn't think about that before, but I think there is some truth to it. And as I pay more attention to my body and my womb, that I think definitely when it comes to anxiety and things, I do notice sometimes that I feel more bloated in my middle area of my body, or I feel like stuffed with something, or it's like there's like an uncomfortable feeling there. And I also know that stress is a big part of PCOS. PCOS can cause stress, and then stress can worsen PCOS. So it's like this a whole bad thing. And I know stress, cortisol, like, and I think it's like you're producing too much cortisol, and like sometimes it's like cortisol is good in terms of like flight or fight reactions to things, or if you need stress to get ready for something. But when you're just stressed out all the time, it can really be a big issue. And I know for me, I still have to figure out ways to deal with my stress, because I know that, of course, I moved to a new place this year. So there were a lot of times where I had a lot of stress with new things. And to the point where really like, you know, having like some mini like meltdowns and breakdowns and things like that, because figuring out my new life that I'm living. And also the world is very different after the pandemic. So that adds to the stress. So definitely have to deal with that. And I think I know more. I've been doing more research. I know like what my hormone type is now. And apparently stress is a big part of it. So definitely, definitely knowing about your hormones, what they do is, you know, important. And yeah, so still dealing with it, but I definitely listen to my body more. I mean, sometimes I ignore what it's saying, but I still listen to it, so that, yeah. And then also another thing I heard or read about was like how PCOS causes like, what was it? Like there's not enough research on the like psychosocial experiences of PCOS. And it made me think about times I have anxiety or stress or like depression. And I wonder now, is PCOS part of that? Like, does it cause depression or anxiety? Because sometimes that would happen where I still haven't figured out the mood swings, but yeah, I would have really, really bad cravings where like I'm so hungry that I feel like I'm going to like faint. Like and I just ate something, okay,
Right.
and then an hour later I'm starving, right? So that I know is, you know, drops of, you know, food, having like cravings, like really bad cravings for things, and or just feeling really, really dehydrated and things like that. And I wonder if like, or an anxiety or feeling depressed or sad or things like that. And I wonder like, is it me? Am I sad or is it PCOS? And now I'm just like, okay, all right. So, and of course that pushed me to do more research. And so looking into ways to help that, or I think what is it called? CBT? Because there's something called like, oh, I forgot what it was called. Something to do with cognitive behavioral therapy or something like that. I don't know. But yeah, it's definitely pushing me to research more, because my main thing is I just want to be at peace. I just don't want to be stressed and anxious all the time. And that's kind of how like I feel a lot because of PCOS. So hopefully I like figure that out. But it's definitely a learning curve. I don't know if it's something we're born with or just something that grows in us. I don't know if it's the times we're living in. I mean, obviously in the olden days, people died much quicker, right? You would like be 12, 13, you have kids by 18, I think, right? 20, and then you're with your kids and then you die by 30, right? Your 30s and 40s was your old age. So maybe, I don't know, because we're living longer than we should, that might be part of it. And then obviously the things in our food, and things like that. But
would you like
so
to
I'm just still
hear
trying
my feedback on that?
Oh no, not the feedback, because that's what I'm saying. It'd be interesting podcast, because I'm like, what's going on? What is this? Ew, ew, ew. And you're just like, well, in my research of 50 years, I have something to say. Yes, please help me with my anxiety as I drown in it.
Indeed.
I'm actually
At
fine
least,
now. I'm not anxious.
yeah,
Go
at
ahead.
least. I mean, I think also with all of the research that one does with this, and I know we're going to have to like wrap up soon and possibly do like a part 2.
Yes, part 2, definitely.
Yes.
So much information.
But I think because there's so much information out there, I think one always has to maintain the mindset of being a bit fluid in interpreting the different like adaptations of that information. Exactly. So because scientifically or medically, they insist they don't know why it happens. They don't know where it's coming from, don't know if it's hereditary, et cetera, et cetera. So then, okay, we want to look at historically, okay, it's difficult to do that within families because for generations, women were conditioned to not talk about their pain. So you can't ask your grandmother whether or not, did anybody in the family have this? Your great aunt, did anybody in the family have this? Like, it's difficult. So it's only the closer now generations are starting to actually cousin so-and-so also had fibroids. That's why it took a while for her to have children, or so-and-so had this, like, you know, trying to make a sense of like the family tree of like, why are we all having these difficulties? From what I've researched or noted about, okay, well, historically speaking, was this a thing for women back when people were actually in the society of just gathering and harvesting and farming and running away from dinosaurs? Were we also dealing with PCOS at this time? And at least from what some of the stuff that I've come across is that when you look at cycles in terms of biologically for women and men, men are described as the sun and women are described as the moon. So men reboot within 24 hours like the sun does. Women reboot in roughly 28 days like the moon. That's why each week the moon has a different face. Each week you are dealing with a different version of Dagny because I have my energy is different every week because my body is going through a different part of my cycle every week. So if we're looking at previously in history when we were gathering, harvesting, making cool stuff with rocks, at that time, women were possibly living more in sync with how naturally they flow, rebooting within 28 days. And apparently, in some cultures, a thing would happen where once a month, all the women would go on their own somewhere in the forest, in the woods, away from everybody else, and were capable of having their period. Now, granted, I wasn't there. Okay. So apparently, allegedly, and supposedly, they could actually release their period on their own. They didn't have to be wearing pads for it to just happen without you controlling it or without you navigating it. So it actually was an actual ceremony almost type of thing where all the women, because when we would live together, which technically we still have this, where if you are living among women, our cycles in sync with each other, like we have inner Bluetooth in our bodies, like we just are in sync like that.
Yeah. So no explanation.
No explanation. But during that time, all the women, again, would be in sync like that. So they would go have their ceremony. And because this is also the spiritual part of it, because, Dagny's magical. So we're going to bring in the spiritual part of this.
Yes, of course.
So we are more sensitive, not only physically, but also emotionally and spiritually when we're on our cycle, when we are bleeding. So they would go have their ceremony where they would bleed and have all these like intuitive downloads. Then they would come back into the village and the men would be waiting to hear, what did they hear? They'll have downloads of, okay, this is what you should harvest. This is what's happening with the weather. This particular tribe is coming to fight us. This, like different things like that. They would come with that wisdom. And then the next month it would happen again, kind of thing. So their lifestyle was very much in flow with what their bodies needed at that time.
Yeah.
I don't know if this started from the industrial age onward, but we do live in a time where we are supposed to live like men. And I don't mean trying to be like a man. I'm not talking about patriarchy or not. I'm just saying, like I noted, if biologically men reboot every 24 hours, we reboot 28 days. Showing up at 8, leaving at 5 every day, doing the same thing every day, being on every day, works biologically for men because once they sleep at night, they're ready to go the next day. Their body has already rebooted. They're fine. While for women, from week to week, I need something different because my body should not be, I can act like it, but over time, my body starts having an issue when I'm acting out what I'm not supposed to be doing. So some reports take note that, well, since we've been doing this for some decades now of being the working girl and women showing up in a way that doesn't really flow with us. And then further, like I've noted before, the conditioning of periods being seen as a taboo, something dirty. And then on top of that, well, let's give you medication for you to stop your period from happening. Let's give you different types of contraceptives that stop your period from happening. Those sorts of things are fighting against our body. It's not flowing with what our body needs. So the fact that you're having even more infertility or fertility clinics coming up. The fact that there's actually a lot more women dealing with these issues now. It's possible those issues were not a thing before because our lifestyles are actually more in sync. Now, it's difficult to figure out, okay, so how do we solve that now? If it's a privilege to be able to take a nap as an adult woman, it's a privilege to work from home, or it's a privilege to sync your life in a way, a lifestyle that allows you to do your 28 days like you need to. I don't know yet. It seems to be like it's a formula that everyone's trying to figure out on their own. And not everybody has the privilege to set up their lives like that right now. So that is connecting back to advocacy. It's fine that, okay, right now, advocacy is just knowledge. We're trying to push awareness. And the next, okay, trying to push it so the medical professional will take it seriously. The next part, though, is also, can we build a society that actually flows with what people need? So it doesn't only flow with needing to reboot 24 hours, but can we build a space for everybody, regardless of your economic status? It can't only be those who are privileged can take a nap while other people are working for you while you're taking your nap. Like all women need to be able to have a lifestyle that flows with their body in this way that makes sense for everyone. So that is, in terms of the questioning of like, well, has this always been a case? Or has, is it that our bodies are evolving, so it's a superpower that we have to do this? Like, yes, maybe part of it is a superpower because we see things differently, or we're being made to have to advocate or learn things that others are not. So maybe that is part of the superpower. I'm not sure if it makes us stronger, because then there's other people trying to make it seem like, well, the hormones and stuff, because you're dealing with that. Because again, the spectrum of symptoms for other women, they're dealing with their bodies look more masculine. They have the hair, or they have, different things like that, which makes them concerned of like, am I transforming into a werewolf? Like what is happening sort of thing,
or a vampire.
Exactly. And then, so then others take that and be like, well, actually, maybe the condition has some intersex vibe to it because your chromosomes maybe are different and biologically and things like that. Which goes on to a whole other conversation, because it's true that biologically, regardless of PCOS, biologically, not all women are biologically the same, and not all men are biologically the same. There are a bunch of different variations. We've just conformed to certain boxes of that gender. But biologically speaking, we actually have different deals going on. That's why not all of us look voluptuous, not all women are voluptuous, and not all men look like Hercules naturally, because biologically, we different, right? So I think yes, there's an endless amount of questions, which can be overwhelming. And it's great though to, as you find the different answers, maintain the mindset of one, some of it you have to take with a grain of salt. But others of it, I think it's also constantly always leading you to the answer of, it's about trying to figure out how can we take better care of ourselves and each other, and how we do need more gentleness in our lives.
Definitely. Yeah. I definitely agree with that. I think the main thing is just, take it day by day, and don't be too overwhelmed. I try to, like, if I start getting overwhelmed, I like stop and go like, okay, maybe I'll just go take a nap or drink water or something like that. And figure out what like works for you. And do one thing at a time, and just be more open. Look up more like communities that are, talking about PCOS. There's a lot more information on it now, which is very good. Because it definitely helps people. It definitely helps me to know more about what's going on. But of course, you have to find what works for you and how your hormones work and everything. And I'm still hoping there will be a cure one day. I'm still hoping that at some point we'll have some way to figure out exactly why it's like this, what's going on, how can we get our hormones and everything in sync with the moon again? I don't know. But it's definitely a learning curve, and I know especially for me, I'm really still figuring out how to deal with it. Hopefully, as time goes on, I figure out something that works.
All right,
to make it easier to deal with the pain.
Yes. Well, this was a wonderful conversation. Thank you so much. Very vulnerable, but I'm glad I was able to share it with you, because I don't think I would have been able to do this like by myself.
Like no one's going to know.
Indeed. So I hope you listening, I hope you found this conversation helpful and encouraging if you are going through some of the stuff that we shared with you. I hope you know that you're not alone, and you're not broken, you're not defective. And regardless of what part of the journey you're on, you too will find that magic formula for your own healing as well. So please let us know your thoughts on this conversation. Let us know if we can definitely do a part 2, 3, and 4, because there's so much information that can be talked about in terms of handling or navigating this. So let us know if there's anything else you would like us to share or talk about this topic, and you might see it in a future episode. So thank you again. And
thank you.
We will catch you on the next episode.
Yes. Health and love. Good vibes. Good luck with everything. Be gentle with yourselves out there. Okay. All right. Bye.
Bye. Take care.